major things going on, continuation of major things, not positive. Huge violence in Seattle, continued violence in Portland and Chicago, around the country. It won't be long before major cities are evacuated, before the barbarians, the animals, as the president puts it, are in your neighborhood, as I've said before, demanding the keys to your home, to your house, taking all of your property, and looting, burning, maiming, and perhaps even killing you. That's a fact. You've got to be prepared for that. And who bears primary responsibility for this? I have to say, not just the leftists, not just universities who have taught our kids socialism and communism and Marxism and everything else that's anti-American, but of course, the former President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, who continue to be the evil Wizards of Oz, holed up in their $8 million mansion in Kalorama in Washington, D.C., who are orchestrating all of this. And of course, who worked with Obama? And this is something that people need to keep in mind. John Lewis is now being deified. Former congressman, now deceased, lying in state in the Capitol. He should not be lying in state. He did some good things at the beginning of his civil rights career. He was a lieutenant to Martin Luther King, who obviously was a great man despite his Marxist ties. He was a great man. But John Lewis progressively over time became extremely anti-white, not just anti-Trump, but anti-white, and he became a racist in his own right. And frankly, it's disgusting to see Fox News yet again play both sides of the street and join in the chorus deifying this guy who at the end of his life was little better than either Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson. Now I want to flip to something else in terms of what's been going on. Over the weekend, Sinclair Broadcasting was attacked by Media Matters. Of course, that's funded by George Soros, the evil George Soros, the Nazi collaborator, the self-hating Jew, who with his father confiscated property from fellow Jews going to gas chambers and ovens in Hitler's Germany. He gave an interview years ago on CBS to 60 Minutes where he was asked about that, and he showed no remorse, had no problem with what he did. And frankly, but for the fact that he's so wealthy, he probably would have been kidnapped by Israeli Mossad and tried and executed in Israel. But that's money talks and nobody walks. We see that way that works in this country. Nobody's held accountable for anything if you're high, rich, and part of the club. But getting back to Sinclair, is that Media Matters and CNN waged an outrage campaign because my client, Dr. Judy Mykovitz, gave an interview a few weeks ago to Eric Bolling on his show. And I love Sinclair. Sinclair is truly conservative. They own about 300 stations, local stations throughout the country, much more powerful than Fox News. They have more viewers in one major market in one day than Fox has in 1 month. Keep that in mind. They're the ones that contributed most to get President Trump elected. Getting back to the story here is that Judy Mykovitz, the author of Plague of Corruption and Plague, and she's got a new book coming out, Unmasked, and she's our client, worked with Dr. Fauci at the lab in Fort Detrick, Maryland, with the National Institutes of Health, and she knows that the seeds of COVID-19 emanated from that lab, just like the anthrax that attacked us after 9/11. We could not do certain research in that lab for ethical and legal reasons, so we shipped it over. The seeds of that virus, which were a SARS-type virus, laced with HIV, laced with Ebola. See, the lab at Fort Detrick, in theory, is supposed to do research to prevent us from being attacked by a biological weapon. But in reality, we create biological weapons too. We know that the anthrax that attacked us after 9/11 came from that lab. It got out. It was given by George Bush, the dad, to Saddam Hussein to use against the Iranians when they had a war between the two nations. To make a long story short, the Obama administration gave millions of dollars. Some of it even went over during Trump. I'm sure he didn't know the money that had been allocated to the Communist Chinese lab in Wuhan, China. And they obviously engineered that virus and turned it into a bioweapon, a deadly bioweapon, which escaped either accidentally or by design. Dr. Mikeovitz came to me because she's being attacked continuously. The powers to be even had her arrested at one time without probable cause. She was released because she tells the truth. She's a whistleblower. She knows what happened. And not just with that, with regard to everything else, with the negative consequences of wearing masks, with the negative consequences of some vaccines that can harm people. And she's very wary of the vaccines that are being developed with regard to COVID-19 to be given to people without adequate testing. She's not against all vaccines, but this is dangerous. So what happened here is that CNN waged this outrage campaign along with other leftists. It's all over the internet, made Drudge, and Sinclair pulled back on broadcasting the interview linking our lab at Fort Detrick and Fauci to what happened in Beijing in the release of COVID-19. People need to know this. And it does help explain why Trump and our government has gone light on China. You know, arresting people in consulates is not the same thing as holding people accountable for the damage. And people, I mean the communist Chinese, that was caused by COVID-19. Why should we have to pay as taxpayers? Why do our businesses have to be destroyed? Why does our health have to be affected without holding China accountable? Well, the president obviously knows that, unfortunately, our government, before he became president, has some role to play in what happened. And this needs to be told, just like as with anthrax. So this is your Freedom Watch. We have class actions against the communist Chinese. Sign up, go to freedomwatchusa.org. See if you qualify. We have a criminal case in The Hague. We are doing our part, and we're getting the truth out with Dr. Judy Mykovitz. It needs to be told. And Fauci is no messiah. He is the left's Prophet Muhammad. That's what he is. And he needs to be unmasked, so to speak. And people need to know who he is, because he's done his best with his leftist friends to destroy the president. In my view, has done very harmful things to this country with his misinformation. Now he thinks he's a movie star and throws out pitches at baseball games. I mean, this is out of control. So this is why you need to listen to this podcast. And I thank Radio America for allowing me to tell the truth every day as I and my clients see it. You won't get this on Fox News. Fox News is now supporting John Lewis, deifying him. This guy doesn't deserve to be deified. You're the product of your entire life, not just what you did with Martin Luther King. And the violence in Seattle, president, and everywhere else in this country, step up to the plate. You need to arrest all these people. It needs to be put down, period. They're criminals. That needs to happen. We've had a case in Philadelphia for the police for reverse discrimination. What is your Justice Department doing? So share this podcast far and wide. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify, Roku, Amazon Fire, the new Twitter, Parlay, Facebook, freedomwatchusa.org, radioamerica.com. Get the word out. Get the clarion call out. We must rise up ourselves, we the American people, and save this nation before it's too late. God bless you. God bless America. God save America. God is with us. And I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of our special podcast, A Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, thank you for listening to me.